gorgeous lights. Welcome to an energy update for the week starting the 21st. And I kind of just really wanted to come on because so much has actually been happening. And I know that I say this all the time, but it's really, really hard sometimes to watch multiple trajectories that are actually going on all over the place and keep track of them and then trying to word them. So I do try as much as I possibly can. Right at the moment, we've just exited or entered into Pluto heading into Aquarius, and we've also got this lovely moon that's looming around us as well, which is all representing new opportunities for growth, closes off of old cycles, and understanding that can actually come to you as well. Now, one of the key things I'm noticing, and they keep playing a song which is called The Pinball Wizard, and it's a little bit about realising in the lyrics of that song, it said that deaf, dumb and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. And I kind of was asking them about that and going, okay, that's an interesting song to give me. What does it actually mean? And they said, well, this is pretty much where you're being challenged in your way of thinking right at the moment in the energy of 2024, which is going to make it a refocus and a refocus year again, which has the opportunity to write new chapters, look at old things, close off old cycles, and that just goes on and on and on. But what that creates in your own head is this almost like pinball effect between what your brain currently knows and what your intuitive understanding and your higher self is trying to bring forward. So you can literally be ping-ponging backwards and forwards between a mindful way of thinking, which is what your brain has already experienced and the fears that it has, the insecurities that it has, and then you can the next minute kind of land in this innate wisdom that everything's going to be okay, that you're okay, and there's nothing to fear. So the gaps in between those ping-pongs is really a tremendous amount of confusion. And I think what it does when we hit this confused state in between what our brain's telling us and what our heart's trying to tell us, what our intuitive side is trying to tell us, is that we can end up in this just complete confused predicament. And I can see that 2024 is actually, because it's asking you to refocus and it's asking you to believe your inner truth, not necessarily the outer truths that you're being shown to you, because a lot of it is to do with some of our programming and some of our societal programming, let's face it, is around taking your fears and accelerating your fears and scaring you, rather than actually bringing it down to empowering you in any way, shape or form. So I can see this being an incredibly roller coaster year as people are actually really starting to question, what do I actually really believe? And the key to that, and is going to be do that, is you're going to lose faith in organisations, government structures, the way that we did things, which is going to cause a huge amount of tension on the planet and a lot of fears in those confused states, until you actually bring it back to actually going, at the end of the day, I need to have more faith in myself that I can deal with problems as they come up. I can deal with anything that goes on without letting your brain escalate into the fearfulness and surrendering your self over to those fears. So I'm very, very aware in the energy at the moment as we're starting to accelerate into this. Was New January was going to be a bit wishy-washy, so if you've been feeling like it's a bit wishy-washy, then yep, 100%. But as we're moving forward, and particularly as we're coming in past this full moon, you're going to actually start noticing your own torn loyalties, Spirit says, to your own thought patterns and the way that you think. And they had asked me to, jiggling around, they had asked me to actually help people to understand that it's about, trying to listen to your inner radar. Now, the thing that's really, really difficult with that as well is, of course, you have all this, the way that your brain operates, the bombarding of social media, mainstream media, everything like that makes you go, I don't know who to believe. And I think probably the energy that Spirit's trying to convey with this particular energy update is that you will need to have to start trusting yourself more, and trusting yourself in an empowered way, not in a disempowered way. Like, if we sit in the energy, so we're working on so within, so without. So when we're working on our inner kind of moral compass or our inner voices which govern our outer reality, then we're going to have to be mindful enough to actually say, where am I letting my thoughts go? Are my thoughts in confusion? Am I not wanting to take accountability? I want other people to take accountability, and I want them to fix the problem as well. So as you can hear with what we're actually talking about, what Spirit's talking about, it sounds messy. It seriously sounds messy. And, we, as human beings, we quite often don't actually deal with stuff until we're actually confronted by it. And then we kind of stop and we look around and we go, is there somebody else more adult here around that can make that decision for us? And I see it an awful lot. It's why we ring a friend when something goes wrong, because we're not ringing that friend to tell them that something's gone wrong. We're actually ringing them to validate how we feel about what actually went wrong. So there's an awful lot of stuff that's actually happening within this year, 2024, which a lot of people are going to find really confronting, and they're going to either want people to take accountability, or you want your government to take accountability, or you want someone to do this. But to be perfectly honest, there's going to be constraints about how you're actually able to deal with that, and what you're going to have to deal with is how you feel about it on the inside, because we're all connected to the collective consciousness, and what we do in here drives the state of being of the collective consciousness, whether it goes into empowerment, understanding, or it goes into disempowerment understanding by what you actually surrender to. Now, this part of our brain here, just to explain to human beings, it governs where we can go into survival mode, and a lot of people on the planet right at the moment actually are in survival mode. Where's the next paycheck coming from? Where's food coming from? All of those sort of things, and that makes us really, really pressurized. It also, with all that preoccupation, it makes it really hard for us to decide, are we making the best decision? Because you're being pulled along by the series of external events that actually makes it feel really, really hard to actually have an existence. But happiness is a state of being. It's a state of mind that actually comes from inside of you by a viewpoint of the way that you look at life. And one thing I've noticed, and I talked to the guides about it this morning, was it's very, very hard for us to trust ourselves. There's a myriad of different ways that we pick apart our own resilience. We get influenced by other people's opinions. None of us like to feel that we're wrong about something, yet within that absolute fear of being wrong is an inflexibility to actually look at what actually sometimes is actually really, really happening, without going, I need it to be that way, it has to be that way, or else I don't feel safe and secure, and being able to say, yep, I knew it would go that way. So this part of our brain is driving us all the time, searching for predictability, searching for stability. It can even hold us in uncomfortable states, because that's, at least you know what that uncomfortable state is, and that feels, even though it's uncomfortable, it can feel familiar, and the brain knows how to actually deal with it. So there's some major, major things that are going to actually happen this year at a global level, which is going to cause this confusion, which is going to cause this questioning, which can potentially spiral you into a fear, or bring you back and put you into empowerment of trusting yourself more as well. And to do that, to understand how important you are, and I can't stress this enough, how incredibly important you are, how you deal with your own self-care, your own inner responsibility to yourself, which is going to actually add to the collective consciousness. I want to be very, very clear about that. What you're adding to the collective consciousness by the way you think and the way you feel is absolutely massive, more massive than what you actually realise. And I think the human side of us, which is really, really gorgeous, and seriously trying to deal with an awful lot of things, and you have infinitely human days, we all do, where things go wrong, or things tick us off, or we're worried about things, or we have a fear come in, or all of those things that we're supposed to have in the human experience, they're all going to surface as we try and navigate through this year to reach a level of understanding about who we actually trust. And I think that the inflexibility, Elise is just saying, the inflexibility that we have as human beings is we resent change so much, because even if it is awful, or it is difficult, or is it warlike, or corrupt, or whatever, we go, oh, well, at least we know what that is. And it's really, really important for you to understand that these negotiations, they're just saying to me, that you're going to have through this course of this year, will key on your ability to actually trust yourself more, and trust that there's a purpose to it, have faith in good tomorrows, and heading towards that and creating those realities. There's kind of a big push to say you're going to have to come out of your own confusion, and you're actually going to actually come back to actually investigating how you really feel, not with having a need to be right, or a need to make it stable, or a need for any of those other things, but just to understand that this is what we're evolving to, because there is simply more going on than meets the eye, and sometimes the way that our societal programming has gone is away from responsibility to self, of self, and with self, and more into believing that someone else should be accountable, or someone else should do this, or someone else should do that. We have this amazing, remarkable ability to go, I've got a degree of separation from that other person, and they, when in reality the whole of humanity is interconnected. And the guides want you to remember this, that the internal turmoil and wars that we have between what our perception of right or wrong is directly reflected in our governments, and our countries, and our perceptions of control and power and all those sorts of things. And a lot of those are actually going to be challenged. Now, what happens in 2024 is that as countries are challenged on the way that they're doing things, or governments are challenged on the way that they're doing things, because people are starting to wake up and go, actually, that's not okay, we'd like you to be accountable. It's that same old adage, right? We fight to hold on, we fight to let go. So this diversity of right and wrong, and battles within, battles without, countries being right, countries being wrong, wars here, that sort of thing, we really start to get really, really caught up, as the guides say, into a them and us scenario. And we've seen that over the last couple of years, to do with what Spirit calls the Great Divide, the divide between, at our health levels, people that think this way, and people that think that way, and who's right and who's wrong, forgetting that you're all entitled to have an opinion. But beyond that, you're actually all in it together. So it doesn't matter which way that you're going to argue it, you're actually all in it together. And how you actually turn up to navigate through these problems and these issues that happen at a bigger level is remembering that you're all in it together as well. So it's time for us to really start to actually investigate the side of ourselves that isn't caught up in the right or the wrong, but actually says, how do I want to actually align myself into my most compassionate, empathetic self with myself first, so we can start to see the reflection of that energy imprint, if you like, into the collective consciousness. Now, if you're aware of this, let's go back to the pinball analogy. If you're aware of that feeling of battling between, I think this way and I feel this way, I think I feel jump, and the confusion, and serious, having been there, got that t-shirt, because I get to do all of this before I start talking to you guys about it, is understanding that you can get incredibly tired on the inside of yourself, just battling with your inner self. And as you battle with your inner self, then your immediate reality around you, you start to see the arguments within the other people. You start to see the people saying that's right and that's wrong and that's this and that's that on the outside of you, and realise that everybody's actually going through the same thing. We're just at different levels of evolution of how that's actually working. And we have this need to go, I want that person to be accountable, but that person sees their world through their own reality, and if they're battling with their own right or wrong and they sit in vindication that they're right, there's this absolutely concrete inflexibility to be able to even consider how another person feels, but better yet, unable to step back and actually see that everybody's actually having these own internal wars, but we're taking it out on each other, or we're a catalyst from the universe, or the other person is, to help trigger you into understanding, because the universe is always trying to illuminate for us by our own inner realities about what we need to heal to come into this compassion, to come into this understanding, to address the fears that we have that are holding us back from having a beautiful life as well. And look, this is a whole pattern on the planet. This is not new. What's going on with this actual energy, though, as well, is the intensity of it. And I want you to really, really look after yourself in this energy, and seriously, don't ever fly off into the fear-mongering side of it and going, oh, it's all going to go wrong. Because if you create that inner reality, then you'll see that in your outer reality as well. And please don't also focus, there's a lot of very, very complex soul agreements that we have on the earth plane for the experiences that we're supposed to have. If you're incarnated into a country where there's war-torn power plays and things going on, each soul has chosen where they need to be for this period of time. Each soul has a soul agreement with themselves for what they're experiencing. I'm not minimising anybody's suffering or anything like that. I certainly am not. I have a huge amount of empathy, but there's just more going on than meets the eye. And because the reality, which we don't understand very often, is that soul aspect of a part of ourselves never dies. It's here for the experiences. That there always is going to be souls that actually line up for this experience. That souls that are going to have this experiential learning because they want to have this experiential learning. And before everyone comes at me and goes, they didn't probably ask for that, you are thinking about that from a human perspective and your fear about what you wouldn't like to experience. And that's 100% perfect. But at a soul level, yes, we do come here to learn. And it's really, really important to actually understand that. So just at the moment, with the energy that's starting to amp up, I would be telling you to look after yourselves, start to actually find your balance in between that confused space, between your thoughts bouncing back and forwards, and have more faith in yourself. And trust yourself more, and come down to the nitty gritty of instead of going, I don't know how I feel about that. Investigate why not. Investigate why or what happened in your childhood programming that said that you're not allowed to have an opinion about this. You're not allowed to have a say about this. Half the time people say I feel invisible. Yeah, absolutely. Because you haven't given yourself permission to say I'm allowed to have my opinion when everybody else around you is having their opinion. So it's about permissive states, and it's not about fear and conflict. You're going to get more conflict when you don't say what you want or what you want to say. Because when you say what you want to say, that's for you. That's not for everybody else to understand it. It's for you to say, I said what I needed to say for me, and I'm okay with that. This is a learning round. We've got to cut ourselves some slack, and we've got to gift ourselves the understanding. The guide says that this is a process, and you're in a process. You can't rush a process, and the process is going to actually unfold. But what you can do is work with yourself in the kindest, most compassionate way as we navigate through this process as well. So it's a refocus here. We will be refocusing and refocusing again, and what even needs to come to light to help us to see, to trust ourselves, that is going to unfold this year. Trust me. So take care of you and keep shining.